school.
There is zero statistical significance.
You got to go to private school.
Because nobody can figure out what's being said here right now. No, there is no last thing right now. We're going to go to break.
It all started on a regular day at the talk show table, but what unfolded was anything but normal. The tension kicked in when two of the co-hosts, Alyssa Farah Griffin and Sunny Hostin, clashed head-to-head in front of the cameras. What was supposed to be a simple discussion quickly spiraled into one of the loudest and most uncomfortable moments on the show. The spark? A fierce debate over schools, public versus private, and who should get the money to fund them. You could feel the heat rising as each woman dug into her stance, determined to prove her point. Alyssa leaned into her own life experience, while Sunny leaned on numbers and studies, creating a collision that was about to get way out of control. This wasn't a polite disagreement. Their voices overlapped, their words cut sharper, and the audience could sense that the table was slipping away from any kind of order. It was messy, it was raw, and it was the kind of live television that instantly grabs your attention because you don't know how far it's about to go. By the way, before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and share more intriguing stories. Now let's continue. The focus of this fiery clash wasn't random. It was tied to deep differences on how children should be educated and who gets to decide where the money goes. One side stood for personal choice, the other stood for accountability.
I'm not making this up. This has been studied. In 2020, a 2020 study found that only about half of states with voucher programs require teachers to have a bachelor's degree, require teachers to have training, require teachers to have licensing, require participating private schools.
If I may get in, just to make it a conversation.
But because I have children and because I looked at the private schools.
I went to public school. I believe you got to go to private school.
There is zero statistical significance.
You got to go to private school.
The energy in the studio was tense, setting the stage for what would soon become a dramatic intervention. Sunny didn't waste a second bringing the facts to the table. She leaned forward and pointed to a study from the year 2020, a study that painted a very different picture of private schools benefiting from voucher programs. According to her, nearly half of the states with these programs didn't even require teachers to have a bachelor's degree. No mandatory training, no professional licensing. She delivered the numbers with conviction, like a lawyer presenting evidence, leaving the air heavy with her words. On the other side, Alyssa refused to back down. She jumped in, trying to turn the conversation into something more personal, more relatable. She reminded everyone she had children and that she herself came from a public school background. To her, this wasn't just about policy or statistics. It was about real parents making real choices for their kids. That's what she wanted the audience to hear. But the problem was, both of them spoke at the same time. Neither wanted to give the other space, and suddenly it wasn't a conversation anymore, it was a verbal tug of war. The studio was filled with overlapping words, half-arguments, and frustration spilling across the table. The energy was so chaotic that even viewers at home would have struggled to follow a single clear thought. It wasn't about school vouchers anymore. It was about two strong personalities locked in a battle to be heard.
Figure out what's being said here right now. No, there is no last thing right now. We're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back.
Yes.
Because you can't. What's happening is no one can hear anything anyone is saying, so everybody has to
on it, yes, so we can talk.
Well,
that
you know,
goes for you too, my dear.
That's for word, and she's been talking for 3 minutes.
We'll be right back.
And this battle was about to push the show into total disarray. The chaos only grew louder as Alyssa and Sunny pushed harder against each other. Words clashed mid-air, their voices tangled like two songs playing at the same time, and the whole table dissolved into noise. At that moment, the spotlight shifted to the moderator. Whoopi Goldberg, the steady anchor of the show, finally had enough. She raised her voice, sharp and clear, cutting through the mess like a knife. There is zero statistical significance. Nobody can figure out what's being said right now, she snapped, shutting down both sides in one swift move. Her tone wasn't just firm, it was commanding, the kind of tone that instantly resets a room. Then she declared what everyone was waiting for. It was time to go to break. The audience reacted with a mix of nervous laughter and relief. On live television, silence can be powerful, but chaos is unforgettable. And here, chaos had taken over until Whoopi pulled the brakes. She didn't just pause the argument, she scolded them like a teacher breaking up a classroom fight. In that moment, it was clear the debate wasn't just about schools anymore. It had turned into a power struggle, one that risked spinning the show completely off the rails.
I don't really enjoy owning the libs or smacking them down. I want to hear from them and I want to learn, and I'm going to disagree, but we're going to try to find the things we can agree on, and then there's going to be some where we don't, and that's how most people live their lives.
Without Whoopi's interruption, the conversation could have gone to a place that even daytime television wasn't ready for. But this was only the beginning, because once the break ended, the tension still lingered in the air. When the cameras returned from the break, the atmosphere felt different. The heat of the argument was still in the air, but Whoopi knew she had to address it before the show moved forward. She looked straight across the table and reminded everyone why they were there. "We're all here at the table, yes, and we're having a conversation," she said firmly, her voice calmer now but still full of authority. She didn't brush the fight aside or pretend it hadn't happened. Instead, she reframed it for the audience. She explained that what viewers had just witnessed was the messy side of having strong, opposing opinions. And that, in her eyes, was the real beauty of the show. It wasn't meant to be neat. It wasn't meant to be clean. Sometimes voices collide, and sometimes it gets uncomfortable. But that's what happens when people care deeply about what they believe in. Alyssa and Sunny sat quieter now, listening, while Whoopi made it clear that arguments like this weren't personal attacks. She wanted everyone watching to understand that no matter how sharp the debate sounded, the panel knew how to leave it at the table when the cameras stopped rolling. It was her way of resetting the tone, letting the conversation breathe again, and proving that even the most heated clashes could be turned into teachable moments for the audience. With the tension cooled down, Alyssa stepped back into the conversation, this time trying to explain her side without the chaos. She admitted that she doesn't enjoy trying to own or humiliate people she disagrees with. For her, the point wasn't to slam Sunny down, but to actually hear her out, learn from her, and still stand by her own beliefs. She wanted viewers to see that she was open to dialogue, even when it got fiery. Sunny, still firm in her stance, didn't let go of her point about accountability and education. But now, instead of clashing mid-sentence, she listened more carefully before jumping in.
Oh, here at the table.
Yes.
And we're having a conversation.
Yes.
And we're going to go back to it. But before we do, I just want to say, this is the beauty of people who have different opinions. Sometimes it's messy. We're going to go back to the convo that we were having.
The back and forth had shifted from a shouting match to something more like a debate, though the tension still lingered. The audience could tell both women were holding back, keeping their tempers in check after Whoopi's warning. Whoopi watched closely, steering the conversation like a referee who wasn't afraid to blow the whistle again. Her presence alone was enough to keep the discussion balanced, as if everyone at the table knew they had already pushed the line once and couldn't risk crossing it again. Even with calmer tones, you could sense the undercurrent of disagreement. This wasn't two people politely exchanging ideas. It was two strong personalities trying to prove they were right, only now with a little more discipline in how they did it. And that raw energy was exactly what kept the audience hooked. As the show pressed forward, the energy at the table was still charged, and the audience could feel it. Sunny leaned in once more, trying to underline her point about accountability. She wasn't just throwing around statistics for the sake of it, she was digging into the very foundation of why voucher programs were so controversial. Her voice carried a sharper edge this time, and the tension was unmistakable. If states don't even require teachers to have degrees or proper training, then how can parents be sure their kids are getting a real education? She asked, her words cutting into the air like a blade. Alyssa, visibly bracing herself, answered in a calmer but determined tone. She emphasized choice parents having the right to decide what's best for their children. To her, this wasn't about government oversight. It was about freedom. She painted a picture of parents trapped in underperforming public schools, longing for alternatives. In her mind, vouchers represented opportunity, not chaos.
There are those moments when Alyssa will say something that I disagree with. There are moments more than I think that she'll admit to. she really disagrees with me, but we leave it at the table. It's never personal, and that's how we do it. And I love that about her. I love that about our show.
The contrast between her personal appeal and Sunny's hard-hitting numbers was striking, almost like two different worlds colliding at one small table. The clash didn't just stay between the two of them. You could sense the rest of the panel shifting in their chairs, uncomfortable but unwilling to dive into the middle of the storm. The studio audience, on the other hand, was eating it up. Murmurs, gasps, even scattered applause rose as the two women dug their heels in deeper. Live television thrives on unpredictability, and this was the kind of unpredictable drama that made viewers sit up straighter on their couches. But underneath the noise, something else was happening. Whoopi sat back for a moment, studying them like a chess player, watching two pawns battle on the board. Her silence was heavy, intentional. She was letting the tension breathe just long enough for it to make an impact before stepping in again. And when she finally spoke, her words dropped with authority. She reminded them and the audience that the problem wasn't disagreement itself. It was the lack of listening. "Nobody can hear anything when everyone is talking over each other," she said, her tone sharp but tinged with a weary patience. It was a lesson not just for the co-hosts, but for anyone watching at home who'd ever been caught in an argument where no one wanted to back down. Sunny and Alyssa exchanged glances, their body language betraying just how much pride was tied to their words. Each of them wanted the final say, the last word that would prove their side was the stronger one. But Whoopi wasn't about to let that happen. She redirected, pulling the focus away from their battle and back onto the bigger picture, the purpose of the show itself. And here's where the scandal really sank in. The show wasn't just about hot topics or policy debates, it was about personalities. And when personalities clashed this hard, it blurred the line between entertainment and chaos. Viewers weren't just hearing arguments about education, they were witnessing a showdown of egos in real time. It was raw, it was messy, and it was the exact kind of television that left people buzzing afterward. But Whoopi didn't stop there. She shifted gears, acknowledging that arguments like these were part of the messy reality of real conversations. She wasn't sugarcoating it, she knew the fight was uncomfortable, but she reframed it as necessary. "Sometimes it's messy," she said, and those words stuck. Messy meant real, messy meant passion. Messy meant the audience was watching something that wasn't scripted or polished, but authentic. The camera panned back to Alyssa, who softened her stance just a little, explaining that her goal wasn't to destroy opposing views, but to understand them, even if she never agreed. It was a more reflective side of her, one that contrasted with the sharpness from earlier. Sunny listened, her expression still serious, but less fiery than before. The two women were still on opposite ends of the argument, but the volume had shifted from a scream to a simmer. The audience could see the transformation happening in real time. It wasn't about who won the debate anymore, it was about showing that two people could throw verbal punches, be pulled back by their moderator, and still sit at the same table, ready to continue. That balance, fragile as it was, made the show compelling. It was television at its most human. Imperfect, dramatic, and impossible to look away from. What made the moment even more gripping was Whoopi's ability to close the gap between fiery disagreement and mutual respect. She didn't let them off the hook. She called out the chaos, but she also reminded viewers that at the end of the day, these co-hosts were colleagues who could disagree on national television and still leave the table without bitterness. It was a rare glimpse into the inner workings of a show built on clashing voices. For the viewers, it was more than just daytime drama. It was a mirror of the world outside the studio, families arguing at dinner tables, friends debating online, people clashing over politics, schools, and values. The difference was that this argument was broadcast to millions and handled under the glare of studio lights. And in that moment, the women at the table represented more than themselves. They represented the very idea of disagreement in a divided world. The segment wrapped, but the energy it created lingered. People weren't going to forget how Alyssa and Sunny went toe-to-toe, or how Whoopi swooped in to stop the madness. This wasn't just another discussion on The View. It was a showdown, a power struggle, and a lesson all wrapped into one. And it left the audience with a question that would stick long after the cameras turned off. How much fighting is too much fighting, and how much chaos is too much chaos when the whole world is watching? Then came the moment where Whoopi tied everything together, almost like she was giving the audience a behind-the-scenes look at how the show works. She reminded everyone that at this table, clashes were not just expected, they were part of the DNA of the show. There are moments when Alyssa will say something I disagree with, she explained, and there are moments where she really disagrees with me. But we leave it at the table. Her words hit hard because they revealed something bigger. The arguments that explode on air don't carry over once the cameras stop rolling. No grudges, no silent treatments, no cold shoulders backstage. To Whoopi, that's what makes the show strong. These women can fight it out on television, challenge each other's beliefs, and then walk away still respecting each other. The audience saw another side of Sunny and Alyssa in that moment too. For all the sparks that flew earlier, Whoopi made sure to highlight that what they shared was passion, not hatred. It was messy, yes, but it was also proof that the table could handle differences without falling apart. She even added a softer touch, saying she loved that about Alyssa, and she loved that about the show itself. After all the shouting, it was a reminder that at its core, this wasn't just daytime drama, it was a platform where disagreement and respect had to coexist. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one.